Well, hello, ladies and gentlemen. I was gonna make this video a while back, but um, I just want to make this video because I'm getting kind of annoyed at this sort of this fawning for Zack Snyder just for the bare minimum of the DCEU films. And all I have to say is, from my perspective, I'm just gonna get straight to it. One of my issues with Zack Snyder is that it's very clear that he really doesn't care about superheroes that much. I mean, he has admitted it. I mean, he only read Watchmen and The Dark Knight Returns. He hasn't really read anything. So he has a very skewed take. And plus, I also think, he has that whole Randian thing. Then he has, the whole. Um, he's also a Miller fanboy. So that explains some stuff too. But I'm going to focus on particularly a thing that bothers me, and that is his interpretation of Superman. Now, I have no issue with the actor of Henry Cavill. I think Cavill can act. I've seen him act in other things. He can act. Okay, he knows how to act. The issue is the script that he was given and the character he was made to direct and by Zack Snyder to portray. That is the problem. That is the primary issue that I have with his interpretation of the character, not the actor himself. I think Cavill under a different director would be phenomenal, because he can do it. One of my issues with Zack Snyder is some of the decisions made for the changes in the story. When you do an adaptation, you are making decisions of what you're going to include and not include in the material. It's just what you're going to do, right? And these decisions are being made ad nauseum most of the time. It's like, well, usually animated series, they made sense because they're trying to trim the fat, but they get the core of the story. That's why the animated stuff actually did pretty well, because they understood the core of the stories, what's being told, yada yada yada. Right? I know film medium, it's different. You got to push a different envelope there, but some of the decision making in these DCEU movies, particularly with Superman, I don't understand, and it could explain a lot of issues and the stuntedness of his character in these films. A primary example is that, number one, this is just what I've seen, and it's clear to me Zack doesn't understand Superman's mythos whatsoever. They came with the intention of, we're going to come in and do Superman as if no one has ever done Superman before. Okay. Now, this is an interesting assumption because they came with that idea, and it's just like, so, okay, so wouldn't you go to the source material? Because we haven't really gotten comic book Superman. Not really. So, and Christopher Reeve was more so like, you could say he represented more of like the Bronze Age era of Superman, still technically Silver Age. But even then, he didn't. It wasn't 100% Silver Age, Superman in that way. Um, but there was still elements that were there of Superman's comics and added things that were new, that were actually good things that were new. Like, for example, the Fortress of Solitude being crystallized. I didn't like Krypton. I didn't like it because Star Wars came out and we had all these incredible sci-fi sets, and it was kind of annoying to see Krypton being a very empty place. It's like, what the fuck? I mean, Star Wars came out years before. I kind of felt like there kind of wasn't an excuse, but I guess budgetary reasons, we don't know. It's kind of the first superhero movie, so I can understand. But Christopher Reeve's Superman stayed core to the character, even for that era of his portrayal, even though it was based off Silver Age, Bronze Age comics. So that's good. It's fine. Superman Returns, that was an issue because Bryan Singer didn't know anything about the character. He only watched the Reeves movies and didn't go anywhere to evolve Superman. Not even at all. Or did he plan to like expand the Reeves verse or whatever? It was nothing. Um, and we all know the Superman sequels, which were pretty bad. So there was a lot of lack of his villains. Yeah, there was a whole bunch of issues. But the first Reeves and the second one were great films for their era. So when they say don't do that, I assumed that we were going to get more of the source material. So watching the movies, saw Man of Steel because I'm a huge I'm a big Superman fan. He's like my favorite fictional character. One of my favorite fictional characters. But in terms of superheroes, he's my favorite. Along with Spider-Man, it's kind of those two that are kind of yeah. Batman comes a close second for me, but I have a lot of number ones. Um, that are not Batman's like number two, but I have a lot of number ones. Um, but for me, some of the decisions made in Man of Steel was that, well, first off, we're going to get rid of Pete Ross and Lana Lang. We're just going to make them background characters. This was very strange to me. That made no sense for me. Because I look at it from a writing point of view and I'm like, why do you want to get rid of those characters? Those are characters that inform Clark's life on Smallville. I mean, Clark is still friends with those characters even past that point, right? Even the Reeves movies at least had, ironically, Lana Lang show up. At least they had that going for them, right? So I found it strange. Unless, people are gonna make the argument, well, maybe they were doing an amalgamation of Lana and Lois with Amy Adams. To me, that'll be kind of weird. That's kind of a mistake to do that. That's just bizarre. I don't know why you would do that. But I don't think that was the case. Because Lana does exist in the movies. It's just that they just made them into background characters. Which is absurd and frankly just stupid. So that's one of the decision making elements that I felt like these guys didn't actually read the source material. They just said, oh, we're going to do something that's better than the source material. Which goes into my rant about Goyer in the Nolan thing. Because I feel like Goyer's notorious for this. He's notorious for this type of bullshit, to be quite honest with you. He's notorious for thinking that he can write things that are better than the original source material that they are adapting. And he's a fucking annoying for that. He's known for that all the time. And, and he's a hack writer. I don't know why the hell this guy still he's like a hit or miss writer, and he keeps getting money. It goes into like the white supremacy type thing, because it's like, or, the over reliance on like right writers, because it's like, why the hell do you have this guy writing all these scripts? And he can get paid millions of dollars writing a script, and other people of color and other artists, they don't get the light of day with their scripts. You know what I mean? It's fucking absurd. And people like him and Zack Snyder can get a job every time. It's crazy to me. But one of my issues that I have with the portrayal of... Yeah, so that's one of the issues. And this explains why Cavill's Superman just came off as bizarre to me. Because he had no dialogue lines, which was very weird. I mean, I'm watching a Superman movie, and Superman is barely talking. Has much in his film. It's only a couple scenes he talks, and he has all that stuff, and it's flashbacks. But has Superman in the costume, he's not talking. It's just weird. It's weird what they did with him. And I think again, the bullshit going ape with the Jesus thing, it was ridiculous. Personally, I hate the Jesus thing because it kind of erases Superman's Jewishness, as where he was written by Jewish writers. He was created by Jewish writers, so it's absurd to me. He's a science fiction Moses type character. I mean, turning him into Jesus. I mean, that was in the 70s, and that was just brief. And all of a sudden, people just started saying like, "Oh, let's do the ham Jesus stuff with Superman." It didn't stick for that long, to be honest. Even in the modern era, they don't even do that anymore. Even in the modern comics, they don't even they do not even do that Jesus hamming. It's only in the movies they do that stupid Jesus hamming. So yeah. So other than that, we got that going for it. So it can explain perfectly why this Superman is so stunted emotionally, because he only has connections to two specific characters, Martha and Lois. And this is where I feel like they weren't clever with their writing, because even if Paul Kent was horrible, and he was horrible in the Man of Steel movie, even if that Paul Kent is questionably bizarre with his moral quandary that he gives to Clark, you could have had Lana and Pete Ross as a balance to the Paul Kent being paranoid over his son being revealed. You could have had that emphasis that Clark isn't just inspired by Jonathan and Ma Kent. There are other people in his life that give him that motivation to say, yes, being Superman is what I do and I want to help people. Lana Lang and Pete Ross were perfect characters for that. Even if you wrote yourself in a corner with Jonathan Kent, that's what I'm saying, these guys don't know how to write. Even if you wrote yourself in a corner with Jonathan Kent and the morally questionable things that he says, you could have had characters like Lana Lang and Pete Ross be the anchor to Clark, tell him, no man, you can do what you have to do. You can be a good person and help people. But no, Zack Snyder wanted to do some weird, stupid Jesus metaphors. It's just stupid. I'm sorry, it's just dumb. It's just really dumb. Because when people do like the Jesus metaphor for Superman, even Bryan Singer started doing that crap. You just know from that instance that, yep, they don't know much about the character. If that's the first thing they jump to, they really don't know anything about the character at that point. It's just clear to me. So then we go to Batman v Superman, and Superman's been Superman for 2.5 years, and he still has no other emotional connections besides Ma Kent and Lois. And I'm like, okay, where's Maggie Sawyer? Of course, we're not going to include her because, she's a lesbian, so we're not going to include her. And no LGBTQ representation. We don't need that character. Where's Dan Thurman? Where's Bebo? I mean, Superman's been Superman for 2 fucking years. I'm not saying we even need to see those characters. Maggie Sawyer, I would say you need to have her. But I would argue you could have had Jimmy Olsen, but what did Zack Snyder do? He unceremoniously murdered Jimmy Olsen for no fucking reason. And and I hate the argument that people use about, well, it's because of realism. They didn't want, Jimmy Olsen to be everywhere at once, blah, 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 like he is in the Superman comics. Like, okay, that's like gooky Silver Age stuff that he's there. Or early 70s with Superman's pal Jimmy Olsen comics. Where he's helping Superman with Darkseid and all that stuff. Yeah, cool, fine. You don't have to do that in there. But here's the difference. He's Superman's best friend. One of Clark's close friends. You could have had him in the film. You could have had that character interaction with Jimmy and Clark in the Daily Planet. Even if you didn't have the other characters like Jenny and the other characters, you could have had the interaction between Clark and Jimmy. Have Clark and Jimmy go to Gotham. Have have that sort of story. But no, we're going to kill him off. Even though Jimmy is a staple of Superman's universe for years now. Almost a century. This guy was created in 1940. He appeared in 1938. So he's been with Superman since his inception. Just as Robin's been with Batman. And somehow Zack Snyder just thinks it's a good idea. We're just going to kill off Jimmy Olsen because I can write better. It's just stupid, you know. It's just dumb. And I saw some people have arguments about why there was no Jimmy Olsen, and I just think it's like, nah, you could have written him. You could have written him in the story. It would have been fine, because the problem with this Superman, and it's very obvious when you watch the movie, he has no other emotional connections to humanity. It's just Martha and Lois. So of course this Superman acts like Dr. Manhattan. He has no other connections. There's no Pete. There's no Lana. There's no Jimmy. Not even Bebo's in it. He's probably dead because of the destruction in Man of Steel. None of the supporting characters are there with the character. The Nolan Batman movies, at least they had Gordon, Lucius, Alfred. At least they have the supporting characters there. What does Superman have? Just two characters, Martha and Lois. What? And this is where you get the weird. This is where I think you had the awkward, bizarre. This is where the weird sexism stuff comes in. Like, just unfortunately, unintentionally, with the character of Superman, when he just has Martha and Lois there. It's just like there's no other human connections there. There's, like I said, there's none of his supporting casts are there. Yeah, you could say, oh well, they have Steve Lombard and Jenny. They don't do anything. They're not there. They don't. I don't see them. They're not interacting with Clark in the fucking Daily Planet. Even though in the comics, they interact with him almost all the time. They talk to him. Steve Lombard, sort of a dick, but he's a dick with a heart. Cat Grant, that character, nothing. None of those characters, because they're not important, according to these